Okay, councillors, will open the meeting. It's 9:11 a.m. We have an apology from Councillor Vorster, who's attending a meeting with his local police this morning. So, Councillor Anne Jones moved the apology, seconded by Councillor Peter Young. All in favour? Against? Carried. And I'm advised that Councillor Pauline Young will be on her way shortly. We also welcome Councillor Baldwin Lumsden, who's visiting this morning. All right, councillors, we've got a few starred items. Item 3 will unstar Councillor Anne Jones, and we might unstar 5 as well. So, someone like to move that the minutes of the previous meeting be adopted? Moved by Councillor Gates, seconded by Councillor Peter Young. Happy to second that? Take the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 2, Councillor Gates, conflict of interest declarations.
Thank you, Chairman. I have 2 today, and I'll be leaving the room for items 4 and 5 due to a prescribed interest with Arcadis, who are consultants to the project, and a declarable conflict with UPS. I've provided the details to the Minutes Secretary. And despite the refunding in full of those 2 amounts for both the prescribed and the declared, I need to leave the room. So do I do 4 first? Do we vote? I mean, as chair?
No, well, if your intention is to leave the room on both of them,
yes,
then we don't need to take a vote because that happens automatically.
Okay.
But perhaps just check that they are correct. Just go back up again. Just with that, the amount. Okay. All right, so that's fine. All right, scroll down. So then the second one here, Councillor Gates, can you just check the dollar amounts? Just go down a little bit further.
Sure.
Just what does that mean there?
That means that I had $18.50.
3 times?
Yes, but the third amount was refunded in full.
Okay, so can we just clarify that so that it's understood that it was the
final amount that represents a declarable conflict that was refunded in full. But it's more important in terms of the prescribed interest because it is within the declarable, the relevant period. Yeah,
that's fine.
Correct.
Okay, I think that just makes it a bit clearer.
And if we can just replicate that in the Arcadis declaration, that would be good. Oh, it does. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we'll move to item 3. Councillor Jones, did you want a presentation on this one, or?
If I could, thank you. Do we have one?
Do we have one? Pretty pictures on a PowerPoint.
Item 3 on today's agenda is a material change to this code assessment application for multiple dwellings, 184 dwellings and 370 bedrooms at 6 Sickle Avenue, Hope Island. Subject site is 8,200. Is that a bit better? Yeah. Sorry about that. The subject site is 8,244 square metres in size and is located on the western side of Sickle Avenue, just after the bridge, the large frontage to the Hope Island Canal. The previous approvals relevant to the site included a material change of use for apartment building for 176 dwellings and 332 bedrooms, and an ROL approval for access easement to facilitate vehicle and pedestrian access to the adjacent lots 10 and 14 Sickle Avenue, Hope Island. The site is mostly within the medium density residential zone, and a small portion adjacent to the Hope Island Canal is within the open space zone. On the opposite side of Sickle Avenue is the multiple dwelling development currently under construction at 1 Grant Avenue. The subject site has a designated building height overlay of 32 metres adjacent to Sickle Avenue frontage and 26 metres for the balance of the site. The proposal is 8 stories and 25.97 metres in height, therefore maintaining the code accessible building height designation. In terms of residential density designation, the site has an RD6 designation along the frontage of Sickle Avenue and RD5 for the balance of the site. The development proposes a gross residential density of 1 bedroom per 22 1.2 square metres, which is a slight increase to the previous approval over the site. As per the site plan, the proposed development includes the dedication of land, approximately 800 square metres, for public road along Sickle Avenue frontage to enable access to the proposed development and the two adjacent properties to the north. The proposal also includes the dedication of land along the canal frontage for the construction of a future public open space boardwalk. The development has been proposed in two stages, stage one being the proposed access public road from the intersection of Sickle Avenue and Grant Avenue, building A along the canal frontage consisting of 122 dwellings, 190 resident and 24 visitor car spaces over two basement levels, and the public open space boardwalk adjacent to the canal. Stage 2 consists of Building B, which contains 63 dwellings and 75 resident car spaces within a single basement level. The proposal incorporates 1,100 square metres of communal open space, consisting of a combination of internal and external spaces for active and passive recreation for future residents. These two elevation plans graphically represent the proposed development from the canal and Sickle Avenue frontages, with both buildings being 8 storeys and less than the 26 metre height. Whilst Building A represents a built form of approximately 85 metres long to the canal frontage, two vertical recesses, which are 3.2 metres deep and approximately 5.5 metres wide, have been incorporated into the building to assist in softening the visual bulk of the building facade. These two elevation plans graphically represent the proposed development from the intersection of Sickle and Grant Avenues and the adjacent property to the north. The following perspective plan graphically shows the proposed development from Sickle Avenue Bridge when driving north towards the subject site. That concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions.
Just one question from me, just in relation to the dedication of the boardwalk component, we're not conditioning the construction of that?
Yes, we are. As trunk.
Oh, we are?
Yes, there's a condition relating to the construction
sorry, I missed
of the boardwalk.
that. That's fine.
Trunk infrastructure.
Okay, good. Councillor Owen Jones.
Thank you. So it's a code-accessible application that I've tried to bring the Hope Island community along the ride for in regards to the process and the advertising, and which is one of the reasons why I asked for it to come to committee today as well. The officers have worked pretty hard with the applicant particularly in regards to that vertical recess to soften the view of that continuous facade, and they've also done a fair amount of work in regards to the road dedication, as well as I'm going to say a technical argument regarding the Gold Coast waste and water requirements. So I'd like to thank the officers for that. One of the things that I am interested in doing is amending the officer's recommendation to include a bit of a more specific condition in regards to a survey off Sickle Avenue. When number 1 Grant Avenue was constructed, there was a bit of ponding and slumpage of that road, and I think an accurate survey of the Sickle Avenue, both before and after, will help resolve any issues that might arise from basement works. And the officers have also recommended some words around a dewatering management plan, which they've provided to the Minute Secretary. So there were clearly some concerns from the residents in regards to the ponding that's occurred. We're currently doing some civil works to resolve that, but it was never able to be directly attributed to the construction of 1 Grant Avenue. So I think those two conditions might help if anything similar happens in the future.
Okay. Councillor Peter Young, did you have a question?
Just a question. Thanks, Chair. Page 214, about midway down, it's mentioned that officers further acknowledge that some existing residential development within the immediate vicinity presents an underutilisation from a residential density perspective. Are you able to please?
Yes, through the chair, there has been an assessment of other developments on the island. That's been presented further in the report. If you go to pages 232 and 233, there's been 3 sites identified as developments that have underutilised in terms of what the designated residential density is and what was actually achieved on these development sites. So if you look at
On 233, that site 1 and site 2 in particular represent huge chunks of effectively detached dwellings, which were originally envisaged to have a capacity to carry, 3 to 5 story type product. Councillor
And I think the reality, particularly for North Point, because it's a body corporate with those detached dwellings, the opportunity of density ever turning up there is basically very limited because it would need the consent of the body corporate. So, and I think that those couple of pages go a long way towards, in my view, explaining that density conversation, and that's again one of the benefits of having the report come to the committee. It's as the chair will know, it's an interesting conversation at Hope Island because what's happened at Hope Island is the infrastructure was delivered prior to the residents. Half of the residents have turned up, and now they don't want the infrastructure to affect that was delivered to accommodate any more growth. So it's a twin-edged sword when infrastructure is delivered in this type of manner. So, but ultimately, to me, that density conversation is about, is there capacity in the sewer, the water and the infrastructure networks that we're responsible for? And I think the honest answer to that is that there is, despite the fact that it will involve some change of traffic conditions on Sickle Avenue. Sickle Avenue is still nowhere near the capacity that it's designed to cope, even though that will change the way people have become accustomed to over the last 10 years since the infrastructure was put in the ground.
All right, so Councillor Jones, did you want to move it with those
Yes, please.
additional?
Thank you.
So I think, have they been circulated? Yeah. Oh, they haven't, or they have?
So one, the dewatering was delivered by Roger this morning, and
Yep.
I had provided the other to the Minutes Secretary, which was drafted by city officers, and in my view complements the standard condition in regards to road repairs.
All right, I'm happy to second that.
As a former representative.
No. Yep. Okay. All right, you happy with those, Councillor Jones?
Thank you.
All right, did you want to speak for the motion?
Only to say that I think that it's actually appropriate that the city considers code accessible applications in this type of manner. It clearly was the intention of the original Hope Island master plan that was put together through community consultation, and unfortunately now is a little bit lost in time. It's Hope Island's gone through at least the GFC, but it's clearly keenly sought after at the moment. So I think that part of our responsibility as representatives is keeping people informed in regards to the difference between code accessible applications and impact accessible applications and what that means and what our responsibilities are. So there are a couple of members of the community at Hope Island that would have liked to have seen this refused, but I don't think that was ever on the cards. What we need to do is make sure that it's been assessed correctly and that the intent of the city plan is followed through with. And I think that is what's happened here. There are really only a couple of very minor issues that have been dealt with because they comply with the higher level of the POs under the scheme. So I thank the officers for the work that they did during the assessment process with the applicant, and it's everything but a simple tick and flick exercise. It was actually assessed exactly how it should have been.
Okay, anyone else want to speak for or against? You happy with that to be closed, Councillor Jones? We'll take the vote. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Councillor Gates.
Chairman,
and just so I've just been advised by Councillor Pauline Young that she won't be able to make it to the meeting. So if we might just deal with that now, would someone like to move an apology? Moved by Councillor Owen Jones, seconded by Councillor Peter Young. All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Gates.
Chairman, I was just going to suggest that maybe the Director in General Business today could give the people who are the councillors attending today a summary of self-assessable, code-assessable and impact-assessable, because there's been some social media commentary that suggests that impact-assessable applications are in breach of our city plan, and quite clearly that's not the case. The case is that it just requires a higher level of assessment. So I just think it's important everyone understands that, rather than bringing us into disrepute by suggesting that impact can't happen. Maybe in general business?
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Item 4.
Item 4, Councillor Gates.
I'll be leaving the room.
So, Councillor Gates, I know that you want to be out for 4 and 5.
Yes.
That's fine. There was one other general business item that was proposed, which relates to the answer to the question during budget about the investigation areas that was going to be discussed.
I'm happy to come back.
Want to come back, you can. Otherwise, I'm happy for you to depart.
No, I'll come back.
Right, so Councillor Gates is leaving the room for item 4. Okay, we've got a presentation on this one.
Through the Chair, good morning all. Agenda item 4 relates to a development permit for a material change of use, which is impact assessment for a multiple dwelling comprised of 12 units at 21 William Street, Mermaid Beach. The subject site is located within the medium density residential zone and has a total area of 1,214 square metres. Currently improving the subject site is an older style 2-storey apartment building comprised of 7 units. Subject site has flat topography and a limited supply of vegetation. Subject site is a relatively unique site in the context of the Mermaid Beach locality. The site is large and rectangular allotment which only has one adjoining residential development. All other boundaries of the site are adjoined by aspects of the public realm. These include William Street to the south, St John's Park to the north, and a pedestrian thoroughfare which connects the two, extending along the western side of the site. Key landmarks surrounding the site include Pacific Fair Shopping Centre and the Broadbeach CBD to the north, the Gold Coast Highway to the west, and the Nobbies Beach Commercial Precinct to the south. The subject site is identified on the building height overlay map as having a code accessible height of 15 metres and 3 storeys. It has a residential density designation of RD5, which equates to 1 bed per 50 square metres. As the subject site exceeds the prescribed height, it has been triggered to impact assessment. So the proposed development relates to the establishment of a multiple dwelling comprised of 12 units. 11 of the 12 units will have 3 bedrooms, with the remaining unit having a single bedroom. The building height for the proposed development is 4 storeys and 18.45 metres and has a residential density of 1 bed per 35 square metres. A total of 31 car parking spaces is provided for the development, which is broken into 27 spaces for residents and 4 for visitors. So car parking will be provided with a basement arrangement. The ground floor plan of the proposed development includes 3 units, deep planting across the site's frontage, and perimeter planting which is accommodated in raised planter boxes. Communal open space is also provided at the ground level, which will be in the form of a pool area and barbecue facilities. The floor plans of levels 1 to 3 consist of 3 units per floor. Each of the units will have 3 bedrooms. The private open space for each of the units contained within the proposed developments ranges between 22 square metres and 119 square metres. The rooftop terrace of the proposed development provides another component of communal open space, which includes a lounge area, barbecue facilities, and a turfed garden. So during the public notification period, a total of 987 pieces of correspondence were received, consisting of 914 properly made submissions and 73 not properly made submissions. 4 different pro formas were lodged in objection to the proposed development, and this accounted for 92% of the properly made submissions and 100% of the not properly made submissions. 611 of those properly made submissions were from the Mermaid Beach area, and all submissions received were in objection to the proposed development. So the key matters raised by the submissions were height, setbacks, visitor car parking, traffic generation, density, site cover, and communal open space. So the height was the key consideration of the proposed development. The proposed height exceeded the prescribed code accessible height for the subject site. The applicant utilised the 50% uplift provisions of the strategic framework. The proposed building height of 4 storeys and 18.45 metres represents an increase of 50% above the designated building height for storeys only. The building height in metres represents an increase of 23% above the code accessible height. The portion of the development which exceeds 15 metres is limited to the rooftop terrace and services core, all of which are centrally situated within the building footprint. The proposal has been assessed against the requirements of the 50% uplift provisions and considered to comply, providing an excellent standard of appearance through a high-quality architectural outcome. Well-managed interfaces, which combine appropriate built form features with a variety of landscaping treatments, ensures that the proposal enhances the amenity of the surrounding area, representing a high-quality development which reflects the envisaged residential character of Mermaid Beach. Additionally, all proposed living spaces are proposed below the 15 metres, with the only portion exceeding the height limit is centralised courtyard. Potential privacy concerns are managed through the utilisation of landscaping buffers, architectural screening, and appropriate separation distances. Submitters raised concerns that the proposed development's alternative setbacks would result in an overbearing built form that reduces privacy and increases shadows. The alternative setbacks relate to planter boxes and a gatehouse on the ground floor and portions of the rooftop overhang, with the majority of the building compliant with the acceptable outcome. The setbacks of the proposed development have been considered against the applicable performance outcome and considered to apply, assisting in the protection of adjacent amenity and contributing to the streetscape character of William Street. Additionally, shadow diagrams were submitted in support of the proposed development, with the diagrams demonstrating that the proposal complies with the shadow-related acceptable outcomes of the General Development Provisions Code. Another key matter raised by submitters was that the alternative outcome to site cover resulted in a dominant built form. The site cover proposed was 55.6%. The proposed development includes a range of landscaping treatments across the ground floor and rooftop terrace. These treatments predominantly include a mixture of screening shrubs and canopy trees. The centralised footprint of the building, coupled with landscaping embellishments, ensures that the proposal represents a balanced outcome between areas of landscaping and built form. The submitters identified that the resultant density could impact on local amenity, place pressure on services and reduce on-street car parking availability. The proposed development was assessed against the applicable overall outcomes of the zone code, with the proposed density considered to be appropriate because of the high accessibility of the site, the quality architectural design, and sufficient capacity of available infrastructure. The original proposal included 3 visitor car parking spaces, which submitters were concerned would result in impacts on the on-street car parking supply. Following further advice issued to the applicant, the proposal was amended to include 4 visitor car parking spaces. The car parking supply of the proposed development complies with the acceptable outcome of the Transport Code. A traffic impact assessment was also submitted in support of the proposal, which demonstrated that the proposal would generate a net increase of 3 vehicle trips per hour when compared to the existing conditions. City officers consider the increase to be minor and are satisfied that the development will not result in any unreasonable traffic impacts. And the final key matter raised by submitters was the proposed development's provision of communal open space. The proposed development includes a range of communal open spaces, which include a pool area, 2 barbecue facilities, and a rooftop lounge. The areas of communal open space are considered to be safe, practical, and appropriately integrated into the development. It's also worth noting that the subject site adjoins St John's Park and is located 150 metres from the beach. Following a thorough assessment against the applicable assessment benchmarks and having regard to the submissions, it is recommended that the proposed development be approved subject to conditions. Thank you, and are there any questions?
Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair. Just wondering, any conditions stating the times that the communal use on the rooftop would be used?
Yeah, through the Chair, there is a condition which limits the hours of operation from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. That's condition 10. Okay. I can find the page number for you.
That's all right. And
467.
Thank you. And just another question, if I can, Chair. There's an enormous amount of objections. Do you think that some of those objections mentioned that people might think that a precedent might be set with the height?
That is correct. Through the Chair, that is correct. That was one of the submissions raised through talking to the height. However, we've assessed this proposal on its merits and considered it to comply with the city plan. The portion that does exceed the 15 metres is limited to a centralised rooftop communal open space area, which maintains appropriate separation distances from those adjoining properties. Also mentioned was that the site is relatively unique in the Mermaid Beach locality, in that it only adjoins one residential property, with all other boundaries adjoining aspects of the public realm.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamill.
Mr Chair, through to the officer, and I apologise if it's in the report, but just in that local context, what other development has occurred in that pocket around there? Is there any other buildings that have been developed recently that are around this height?
Through the Chair, the acknowledged character of the area is predominantly 1 to 3 storey residential developments. However, there are examples of developments which exceed 3 storeys in the local area within 500 metres. The most recent was at Montana Road, which is 5 storeys and approximately 17 metres in height. Notwithstanding, we have assessed the height of this development and considered it appropriate because of that centralised location of the part that exceeds 15 metres. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we do acknowledge that the character is predominantly 1 to 3.
That was all.
Councillor Jones.
You had a slide earlier, through you, Mr Chair, you had a slide earlier that showed the spread of the submissions and where that, was that generated by city officers or was it generated by the applicant?
Through the Chair, that was generated through city officers.
Okay. Mr Chair, I've found it interesting in reading the report that the officers had included a paragraph which said that it's important to note that whilst properly made submissions must be considered throughout the assessment period, they do not have the ability to change the meaning of the assessment benchmark. And I think that that's in part the challenge that we have here, that you have a pro forma submission that's created that wants to achieve a particular outcome, which is actually largely in conflict with the intent of the city plan. So I don't think that there are grounds for us to refuse the application based on the volume of submissions, because the city plan's height being 50% higher than the mapping, because if criteria is met, is what we actually have to lawfully consider the application against. And that 50% higher than the maps is the only way the city can manage the city plan in the context of having a scheme that allows some flexibility. So we're not allowed to have a black and white scheme. We have to have a scheme that is performance based, and the 50% is the only way that we're able to manage it. So I think that part of the challenge of that volume of submissions against is a misunderstanding of that height limit and the fact that there is that 50% that is allowed, and it's allowed for a very good reason.
I'm happy to move it if someone wants to second it. Second, Councillor Jones. Sorry. Did you have a question, Councillor Hamill? Or? Okay. Any other questions? Actually, I'm happy to support this. And it shows to me that the entire system's working, because I remember when we were drafting the 2016 scheme, we particularly had a conscious thought of how the 50% uplift would work in constraining the heights to where we wanted them to be through these very streets on the back of some 5-storey type plus developments that had been applied for at the time. And so to me, the fact that we have kept this to 4 stories at approximately the 15 metres and being able to give a little bit of flexibility for the lift overrun and some communal open space, I think shows that the scheme did exactly in this assessment what we wanted it to do when it was designed. It seems to me to be a very high quality development outcome and in keeping with the overall feel of the area. So I think I'm quite happy to support on that basis. I do think that it's probably going to test people's attention to the rules when it gets to midnight on New Year's Eve and they have to leave the upstairs at 10 p.m, but might be the matter of a future change application. We'll see. Anyone else want to speak for or against? I'll take the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5. Bowden. Excellent presentation and assessment. Thank you. Now, of course, Jamie, who's a seasoned campaigner. And Mike on. Just put the...
Thank you.
Through the Chair, this application is for an other change to an existing preliminary approval, including a variation request to vary the effect of the local planning instrument. The development application relates to 466 to 478 Marine Parade, 3 to 7 Parr Street and 73 Brighton Street, Bigger Waters. The existing preliminary approval is for the Tricare Labrador Development Code and establishes a master plan for the staged redevelopment of the subject site. The purpose of the code is to provide a range and mix of retirement facility dwelling units. The approved code identifies that the ultimate development outcome may include 4 towers. The approved code allows for an increase to the code accessible height and residential density from what is prescribed in the city plan, and provides tailored outcomes relating to setbacks, site cover, tower separation and the provision of car parking. The figures show the development site and the approved master plan. It is noted that Tower 1, located in the northwestern corner of the site, has approval for a development permit for the Stage 1 tower. The other change application seeks to amend the Tricare Labrador Development Code to include 3 and 7 Parr Street, which are identified in blue on the screen. The proposed development will now be located over 5 lots, resulting in a total area of 11,629 square metres. The site is located within the medium density residential zone and has a designated building height of 29 metres. The other change application required impact assessment. This plan shows the staging plan of the development. The addition of the new lots results in changes to the staging configuration, including the addition of Stage 5 for Tower 5. The inclusion of 7 Parr Street allows for Tower 4 to be amended to replicate the form of Tower 1. A new vehicle ingress and egress is at Parr Street. The building height plan has been amended to include the new land, and the land to the corner of Marine Parade and Parr Street has been identified with a building height of 33 metres. The application seeks to change the density applicable to the subject site from one bedroom per 15 square metres to 1 bedroom per 13 square metres. The new tower in stage 5 includes a 4 metre setback to all boundaries to the building face and 2.5 to the balconies at Parr Street and Marine Parade. City officers have recommended an amended drawing condition that requires the balconies along Parr Street to be set back a minimum of 3.5 metres. The tower includes a 12 metre tower separation to the tower in stage 4. So during public notification, the original development application received 17 properly made and 6 not properly made objections. During notification of the change application, 19 properly made and 5 not properly made objections were received. As the change application was made within 1 year of the development approval, any properly made submission for the original application is taken to also be a properly made submission for the change application. The key concerns raised relate to building height, shadow impacts, impacts on character, traffic impacts, car parking impacts, sewer capacity and construction impacts. The submissions have been reviewed and city officers are satisfied that these items have been raised in the assessment of the application and have been assessed. City officers have completed an assessment against the amendments to the Tri-Care Labrador Development Code and consider the overall outcomes of the code to achieve the provisions envisaged by the city plan. In context of the existing development approval, the proposed changes are considered to maintain the development pattern and the development outcome intended for the subject site. Officers therefore have recommended this application be approved subject to conditions. Are there any questions?
Any questions, councillors, about the Tri-Care Labrador? Councillor Hamill.
Mr Chair, so in relation to the fact that it's within 12 months of the original approval, so just looking at the items that are listed in the report that are from submissions, so there's no delineation in there between the original objections and the most recent objections, it's all mixed in together again?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
Through the chair, yeah.
It's a tag. The only question I had was just one of the issues raised was around public notification. So was that public notification of the change application or public notification of the original application?
Through the chair, so the concerns raised was the length of public notification for the change, but we're comfortable that it was completed in accordance with the Planning Act.
That's all I had, Mr Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones. Chair. Okay, moved by Councillor Jones. Someone like to second it? Second by Councillor Hamill. Sorry, Jamie, can you just bring up the... Have you got a picture on the screen of the original...
The master plan?
Yeah, from the 12 months ago one, or the other one.
So that's the original master plan.
Yeah. So, Jamie, what was the tower separation in that original master plan where that drive-in, drive-out roundabout is off Brighton Street?
So through the chair, that one is 12 metres, the separation on that one.
So it was 12 metres as well?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. So, councillors, what you can see essentially what's happened is that the applicants acquired the two-storey, fairly large dwelling in the southeast corner and then the one down the southwest. And I think that's probably reflected in the submissions because you've now got the people who are on Parr Street and south of Parr Street that are feeling like these are starting to encroach to the south, which I think is probably fair. So my concern probably is more around that Parr Street interface, more so than, say, the Brighton Street frontage. So two things about that. If you just want to bring up the current, yeah.
Oh, one of these.
So that in the new tower there, this is proposed to give them an as of right to 33 metres, is that right?
Through the chair, it's a code accessible building height of 33 metres. So they still have to do an assessment against the outcomes of the TRICARE development code, but it's not an as of right.
Okay. And so what happens when there's new heights coming in that are 44 metres instead of 33 is what's proposed under the city plan amendments? Did I read that correctly?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
So would they be able to still get to 44 or are they now constrained to 33?
Through the code, they are constrained to 33. They could, if they were to go above the code accessible height, it would be an impact application and then assessment against the strategic framework of the city plan.
Okay. And so then that's fine. So in relation to Tower 4, so to me, I'm just confused because I thought you said that the building separation was now 12 metres. Was it 12 metres originally and it's now greater? Between Tower 1 and Tower 4?
So through the chair, now it is 12 metres. Oh. Through the chair, yes, that's correct. It's 12 metres.
So it's 12 metres now and it was 12 metres before?
Yes. Between Tower 1 and Tower 4.
Okay. It just looks to me like there's a much, much bigger separation now than what had been there previously. Can we just check that?
Yep.
Between now and full council. And the reason I say that is I'd actually would prefer that if anything the setbacks to Parr Street were increased. So I'd be interested in just understanding what the Brighton Street frontage presentation is going to be, because I think that the Tower 4 height, which is, how tall is that one?
So Tower 4 has a code accessible height of 43 metres.
Yeah. So if that's only set back very close to Parr Street, obviously that starts to produce some much more significant shadow impacts across that street than we had previously. So I'd be interested in just seeing whether or not there was an ability for us to compress Tower 1 and Tower 4 a little bit more in order to increase those Parr Street setbacks. I don't know if, did you have an answer on that or?
Through the chair, just to clarify, is it Tower 1, sorry, or Tower 5 when we're referring to Parr Street?
Well, the way I'm reading that, you got Tower 1 up the top left, Tower 4 down the bottom left, and they front Brighton Parade. So I'm interested in what the separation is between Tower 1 and Tower 4.
Sorry, through the chair. On page 546, so Tower 1 and Tower 4, there's a separation of 12 metres. I think the diagram that's that you saw previously was showing the tower form, but this shows also the podium. So the tower actually has multiple steps in the design, and I think this is showing the tower separation, and I think on the lower levels it's actually, sorry, on the tower levels it's bigger, and on the lower levels it's less.
Okay.
Through you, Mr.
And is
Chair.
that, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, can I just clarify that?
Yeah.
What's proposed? I guess there's a little bit of a mismatch, if you want, on the, I guess, the master plan that Jamie had previously, and the code. So what's allowed for in the proposed code is a minimum of 12 metres, but that master plan was showing a separation distance greater than 12 metres.
Yeah.
So perhaps to address the issue you had, the code could be amended perhaps, so there'd still be a minimum of 12, but you could push off those boundaries with changes,
I'd rather that they were pushing more off that southern boundary, personally. So I'd rather that we were, like, if that blue sort of sideways picture of the tower there down the bottom right of that slide is accurate, and you've got a 3 metre setback for the first 2 levels and then 4 metres to level 5 and then 6 metres for the tower, like I think we should be starting at least at 6 metres at the ground floor, would be so that by the time you get to the top of the tower it's much further back. Anyway, I'm happy for it to go through today as it is, but I just wanted to flesh out those issues, because the blob map that in the ready kind of pictures is obviously illustrative, but it isn't backed up by what the code allows for, so that's where my concern lies. All right, any other questions, councillors? All right, that was moved and seconded, I think. Yep. All right, we'll take the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Sue, you want to get Councillor Gates back? I've got one. That's good. Did you leave your listening device out there? I did. I want them to be able to check. All right, so councillors, there's a memo here that's being circulated, which Alicia, do you just want to speak to that briefly and then work out what we want to do with it?
Through you, Mr Chair, councillors, Richard's just taken a memo around now. This was a question I took on notice from Councillor Peter Young at Budget a couple of weeks ago, Councillor Young. So this was in relation to the investigation area program for city planning. The memo just steps out the process, what we're proposing for the next financial year from the 1st of July. Happy to take any questions after that, but that particularly goes into the Oxenford and the Parkwood areas, and also the Gaven, which was the subject of your question, Councillor Young.
So, not confidential?
No. Not confidential.
Okay.
This is subject to the budget adoption.
Yes, correct.
Do we need to have a general business to note it or anything, or are you just happy to have
Through you, Mr Chair, we were just going to circulate it today rather than just so we could explain it, but happy to put it as a general business. I don't think it needs it, but if that's council's wish, we can do that too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Councillor Jones.
So, Mr Chair, I don't think it needs to be a general business item, but that in regards to the Oxenford investigation area, that reflects some words Richard's recently provided to our office for our local newsletter, just to keep those residents informed of the process. And I think it aligns exactly with what we'd previously told them post the budget adoption last year in regards to the impacts of COVID. So, so I'm happy with it as far as Oxenford's concerned. So.
Yep. Councillor Hamill.
Mr Chair, I note on the back page of it, it gives a bit of a time frame in regards to when we'd see some future reports back, but I was wondering if through you, Richard, could maybe give a bit more flesh to what we'd actually expect to see by the end of 21-22 presented back to us, like what that would actually look like.
Through the chair, so we're looking in September to come forward with a program. So we've talked previously about the broader program that we're looking to bring in July. So we'll follow up in September with a more detailed program for each of these investigation areas, and that'll include as well any further work that we've identified with Ormo. So yeah, the intention is that we'll have that forward program mapped out. That usually shows when we'll come to committee, when we look at any engagement activities that will be happening as well. Yeah, so that's the sort of nature of what we have in those programs.
Okay, that's cool. Everyone can read that at home anyway. Councillor Hummel?
Chair, I'm interested in how we come to the order, so Oxenford, Napa Road, Parkwood and Ormo. So just in regards to my area, like what is actually, look, there's no mention of Ormo, the 22, 23, that's correct. So there's no work commencing up there in that area anytime soon?
Through the chair, the main, I guess, landowner in that area, there's one key landowner that we are engaging with, so we continue to maintain that dialogue. So we don't want to put out a forward program until we've reached a level of agreement with that landowner about how they want to approach that area. So at this point in time, we're maintaining a dialogue with them, and they've looked at their options. There was, I think, a previous conversation about a variation DA, but yeah, until we've firmed up what that program looks like, we haven't actually fleshed out in any detail in this document what that is.
That's all I was looking for, Mr. Chair, that dialogue's continuing and that's progressing forward positively for the sounds of it, because it wasn't not too long ago. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Right, any other general business? Maybe we should just close the meeting and then we can have a chat about different levels of assessment. Councillor Gates, happy with that? All right, we'll close the